The arena lights blazed down on the stage, casting long shadows over the rows of high-end gaming rigs. The crowd's roar was deafening, a cacophony of cheers and chants echoing through the stadium. This was the pinnacle of competitive gaming, the grand finals of the Global Esports Championship. At the center of it all stood Alex Mercer, a rising star in the world of esports. Known for his strategic brilliance and lightning-fast reflexes, Alex had clawed his way up from obscurity to become the linchpin of Team Phoenix. His journey was one of relentless practice, sleepless nights, and an unyielding passion for the game. But beneath the surface of this glittering spectacle lurked a sinister undercurrent. Unbeknownst to Alex, his team's manager, Victor Lang, had been orchestrating a web of deceit. Victor, a man with a charming smile and a silver tongue, had been manipulating match outcomes, bribing officials, and ensuring that the team's victories and losses aligned with his own financial interests. The grand finals were no exception. As Alex and his teammates prepared for the most important match of their careers, Victor was finalizing a deal with the notorious betting syndicate. The plan was simple: ensure Team Phoenix lost the match, allowing the syndicate to reap massive profits from the upset. The match began, and from the outset something felt off. Alex's teammates were uncharacteristically sluggish, missing shots they would normally land with ease, making questionable strategic decisions. Confused and frustrated, Alex tried to rally the team, but his efforts were in vain. They lost the match in a humiliating defeat. In the aftermath, the esports community was abuzz with speculation. Rumors of match fixing swirled and fingers pointed in all directions. Victor, ever the manipulator, shifted the blame onto Alex, accusing him of throwing the match for personal gain. The media latched onto the narrative, painting Alex as a disgraced player who had betrayed his team and fans. Sponsors withdrew their support, and Team Phoenix terminated Alex's contract. His reputation in tatters, Alex found himself ostracized from the community he had once called home. The betrayal cut deep, not just from Victor, but from the teammates who had gone along with the scheme and the fans who had turned their backs on him. With his career in ruins, Alex disappeared from the public eye. He retreated into solitude, grappling with the weight of the injustice he had suffered. But in the depths of his despair, a fire ignited within him, a burning desire for retribution. He would not let Victor's treachery go unanswered. Over the next few years, Alex reinvented himself. He adopted a new identity, going by the name Ethan Cross. He immersed himself in the study of game theory, team dynamics, and psychological manipulation. He became a master strategist, capable of predicting and influencing the behavior of others with uncanny precision. Ethan began to make a name for himself as a freelance strategy coach, offering his services to up-and-coming esports teams. His insights were invaluable and his reputation grew. Eventually, his path crossed once more with Victor Lang, who was now managing a new high-profile team, the Iron Titans. Victor, unaware of Ethan's true identity, was impressed by the coach's credentials and brought him on board to help the Iron Titans prepare for the upcoming championship season. Ethan accepted the position, his mind already formulating a plan to dismantle Victor's empire from within. As the team's strategy coach, Ethan had access to all aspects of the Iron Titans' operations. He began to subtly manipulate their tactics, feeding them flawed strategies that would lead to critical losses. He also gathered evidence of Victor's continued involvement in match fixing and bribery, meticulously documenting every illicit transaction and correspondence. Ethan's plan was meticulous. He timed the release of the damning evidence to coincide with the Iron Titans' appearance in the championship finals. As the team took the stage, the esports world watched with bated breath. But instead of a thrilling match, they witnessed a catastrophic collapse. Midway through the game, regulators and sponsors received the incriminating evidence, prompting immediate investigations. The broadcast was interrupted by breaking news reports detailing the scandal. The Iron Titans were disqualified, and Victor Lang was arrested on charges of fraud and corruption. In the midst of the chaos, Ethan stepped forward, revealing his true identity as Alex Mercer. The revelation sent shockwaves through the community. The man they had vilified was now hailed as a hero who had exposed the rot within the industry. Victor's downfall was complete. His reputation destroyed, his career over, and facing a lengthy prison sentence, he had lost everything. Alex, having exacted his revenge, walked away from the esports world, leaving behind a legacy of justice and a cautionary tale of betrayal and redemption. The story of Alex Mercer served as a stark reminder of the consequences of corruption and the resilience of those who refuse to be broken by injustice. Victor Lang's voice echoed through the conference room of the Iron Titans, bouncing off the cold concrete walls. He was giving one of his trademark pep talks before the next big match, his voice filled with false enthusiasm, his words a mixture of calculated encouragement and veiled threats. The players, some leaning back in their chairs, others sitting tensely upright, nodded along. To anyone on the outside, it looked like a tight-knit team ready to conquer the scene. But Ethan Cross, once Alex Mercer, sat at the back of the room, quietly observing. Victor didn't know Ethan's true identity. His memory of Alex's face, the young man he'd crushed years ago, had been reduced to a headline and a fading mental snapshot. Now, Ethan's hair was darker, his features hardened by time, his voice calmer and more deliberate. He had reshaped himself into someone unrecognizable, wearing professionalism like armor. Behind the scenes, Victor had only grown more corrupt. His methods were slicker, his network of shady connections wider. Bribes were delivered through encrypted wallets, manipulated matches disguised behind razor-thin plays that could be attributed to miscalculation rather than intent. Ethan had spent months integrating into this world, gathering digital evidence, copying transaction logs, recording encrypted voice calls, but he wasn't rushing it. Revenge wasn't about quick strikes. It was about the long game. During practices, Ethan began feeding the team small, almost imperceptible flaws. Subtle miscalculations in rotations, intentionally vague guidance on enemy tactics, misleading advice on champion picks. It wasn't enough to cause outright failure, not yet. It was just enough to sow seeds of doubt and erode the players' confidence in themselves and in each other. They started bickering over decisions. Whispered complaints surfaced in private chat rooms. Ethan noted it all. In parallel, he was meticulously framing Victor. Posing as a whistleblower, he sent carefully selected pieces of information to select journalists under an alias, hinting at something bigger. He leaked just enough to stir interest, to get rumors churning. But he held back the full story, waiting for the perfect moment. Then came the Charity Invitational, an event that, while not as high profile as the championships, was still widely watched. Victor, ever the showman, used the opportunity to court sponsors and flaunt the team's dominance. Cameras followed the Iron Titans everywhere. This was the perfect setting for Ethan's next move. During the match, a disastrous strategy Ethan had quietly pushed unraveled spectacularly. The team was humiliated in front of millions, failing in ways that couldn't be ignored. Victor, red-faced and furious, berated them off camera, his voice seething with contempt. Ethan watched from the sidelines, making a quiet mental note of each player's reaction, noting who was loyal, who was frightened, and who might be willing to turn on Victor when the time came. Afterward, Ethan quietly approached Connor, the youngest player on the team. Connor had raw talent but was insecure, often the scapegoat for the team's failures. Ethan saw in him a kindred spirit, someone Victor was grooming and manipulating, much like he had once done to Alex Mercer. Ethan gave Connor a simple message, whispered in confidence. He's not your savior, he's your enemy. If you're smart, you'll stay close to me. Connor's wide eyes said everything. Weeks passed, and Ethan escalated his plans. He set up a meeting with regulators, presenting them with a fraction of the evidence he had collected. The match-fixing allegations gained traction, but without the smoking gun, they couldn't act. Ethan knew they'd need undeniable proof, the kind that would force even the most complicit sponsors to withdraw their support. The championship loomed ahead. Ethan's strategies for the Iron Titans had become increasingly unstable, designed to ensure a spectacular implosion on the world stage. But he kept the team just functional enough to make it through the qualifiers, building anticipation for their supposed comeback. Meanwhile, he forged alliances with several disillusioned players and staff members, including Connor. Together, they prepared the final act, a revelation so damning it would obliterate Victor Lang's legacy forever. The day before the championship finals, Ethan planted a hidden recording device in Victor's office. The man, arrogant in his belief of being untouchable, discussed his latest deal with a syndicate contact. He openly bragged about how he'd manipulated match outcomes, how he planned to rig the finals, how he controlled not just his team but half the esports circuit through carefully placed bribes and threats. Ethan downloaded the audio file, his pulse steady, knowing this was the bullet that would shatter everything. The next morning, as the Iron Titans prepped for the final, Ethan ensured the team's strategy would collapse spectacularly. He handed them a playbook designed to fail. Predictable rotations, overcommitted pushes, and flawed counter-strategies. He knew Victor wouldn't review it himself, trusting Ethan's reputation. As the team assembled on stage under the blinding lights and the roar of the crowd, Ethan remained calm. In his pocket, a flash drive containing Victor's damning confession waited for its moment. On the screen, the Iron Titans stumbled through the first match, their performance unraveling like a carefully staged tragedy. Fans watching at home and in the arena whispered, speculated, accused. Ethan was ready. When the cameras panned to him during the halftime break, he stood and, in full view of the world, handed the flash drive to an official. The broadcast cut to breaking news. The recording played live, Victor's voice filling the airwaves with his vile, arrogant boasts. Viewers around the globe listened as the truth came crashing down. The officials halted the championship, security escorted Victor off the stage, and sponsors began pulling their logos from the broadcast. The Iron Titans stood frozen, their careers crumbling before their eyes. Ethan didn't say a word yet. He simply stood, silent and composed, as the chaos erupted around him. He wasn't done. Not yet. Victor Lang sat alone in the back of the security van, his phone vibrating in his pocket, ignored. His face was pale, his usual confident smirk wiped away by the weight of reality. The live broadcast had cut him down mid-sentence. His voice, recorded and broadcast without warning, had damned him in front of millions. The van doors slammed shut, and as it sped away, Victor stared out at the passing streets, each neon light and billboard feeling like a judgmental glare. In the days to come, he would be indicted, his assets frozen, and his name dragged through the mud. But right now, his mind was still processing the betrayal. Someone inside the Iron Titans had orchestrated this. Back in the stadium, Ethan Kross didn't leave with the others. He waited in the near-empty arena, standing in the shadowed wings as the remaining spectators trickled out in hushed disbelief. Victor's players had retreated to their dressing room, where sponsors' representatives and furious PR agents were already descending like vultures. Ethan could hear the muffled arguments, the panic. He knew this was only the beginning. He found Connor sitting on a bench near the loading dock, head in his hands, the glow of his phone screen lighting his face as he scrolled through social media feeds filled with headlines. Iron Titans scandal, Victor Lang arrested, esports industry shaken. Connor's hand trembled as he read the comments, the betrayal cutting deep. "They're turning on all of us," Connor muttered. "They're saying we were in on it." Ethan crouched down to his level, his voice low and steady. "That's what they always do. They'll throw you under the bus to protect themselves. But you don't have to let them." Connor glanced up, his eyes bloodshot. "What do you mean?" "Mean," Ethan said. "I'm going to make sure they can't touch you, or any of the others. But I need you to trust me, one last time." Connor nodded, a flicker of hope breaking through his fear. The next morning, Ethan called a press conference. Reporters crowded into a hastily arranged venue, their cameras trained on the stage, the air thick with anticipation. The industry was still reeling, and everyone wanted answers. Ethan stepped up to the microphone, dressed not in the usual sleek, team-branded gear, but in a simple black suit. His voice was clear, his words precise. "My name is Alex Mercer," he said. The room erupted into stunned murmurs and gasps. Some of you might remember me as a player from Team Phoenix, accused of throwing matches. But you didn't hear the whole story. You didn't see what Victor Lang did behind the scenes. How he manipulated players, bribed officials, and destroyed careers for his own gain. He did it to me, and then he did it again with the Iron Titans. But this time, I made sure he couldn't get away with it. He laid out everything. The evidence he had collected over years, the recordings, the digital trails of bribery and match fixing. He named names, exposed connections, and provided proof that couldn't be denied. Each revelation hit like a hammer, driving deeper the nails of Victor's public crucifixion. And let me be clear, Ethan continued, his tone dropping to a razor's edge. This wasn't just about Victor. It was about every sponsor who turned a blind eye, every official who took a bribe, every player who was too scared to speak up. The corruption goes deeper than one man. But now it's out in the open, and you can't pretend you didn't know. Reporters bombarded him with questions, but Ethan answered them with brutal honesty, refusing to let the industry's enablers hide in the shadows. He detailed how he had infiltrated the Iron Titans, slowly dismantling their strategies, baiting Victor into complacency, and timing the collapse for maximum exposure. I didn't rig matches to win, he said, his voice steady. I rigged their futures to destroy them. The fallout was immediate and seismic. Regulators launched sweeping investigations into not just the Iron Titans, but several other high-profile teams suspected of similar corruption. Sponsors fled in droves, desperate to distance themselves from the scandal. Players who had quietly accepted Victor's influence now faced bans, suspensions, or public disgrace. But Ethan wasn't done yet. In the weeks that followed, he continued to release more evidence. Emails, bank statements, secret audio files. Each revelation exposed another layer of rot in the esports world. Commentators and fans alike reeled from the betrayal. Forums and social media exploded with discussions, theories, and outrage. Meanwhile, Ethan approached the players who had been used and discarded by Victor. Connor was the first, but others followed, those who had been threatened into silence or forced into impossible situations. Ethan gave them a platform, helping them come forward with their own stories, backed by irrefutable evidence. The narrative shifted from individual disgrace to collective accountability. Victor Lang, now sitting in a cold interrogation room, watched it all unfold on a grimy monitor. His empire crumbled piece by piece, his name synonymous with corruption and betrayal. No amount of charm or coercion could save him now. And as for Ethan, he remained calm, watching from the sidelines as the system that had once spat him out imploded under the weight of its own lies. He hadn't just gotten revenge. He had changed the landscape of competitive gaming, forcing it to confront its darkest truths. But he wasn't quite finished. There was one final act left, a reckoning that would ensure no one would ever forget what Victor Lang and his ilk had done. Months passed. The esports world staggered under the weight of its own disgrace, but amid the fallout, something deeper was shifting. The Iron Titan's name had become poison. Victor Lang's arrest was old news, his face splashed across every headline and now a cautionary tale. Several other managers and team owners had quietly resigned or were quietly under investigation. Sponsors, desperate to rehabilitate their image, issued groveling statements and promised new integrity measures. Ethan Cross, Alex Mercer, had stayed mostly silent. The press wanted more interviews, exposés, but he gave none. He knew the media loved a hero one moment and would turn on them the next. His work wasn't about fame or redemption. It was about justice. And it wasn't done. One evening, Connor called. His voice trembled, but it carried resolve. They're trying to sign me to a new team. They're offering big money, like it never happened. But I don't trust them. Ethan listened, then said quietly, They want you because they think you'll stay quiet now. They're still playing the same game. I don't want to be part of it. You don't have to, Ethan said. I'm going to make sure you never have to. The final act of Ethan's plan wasn't another leak or public statement. It was something more subtle, more lasting. He approached regulators with a trove of financial data, not just Victor's transactions, but a web of shell companies, offshore accounts, and disguised payments tying together some of the biggest names in esports. Every player, sponsor, and official who had quietly profited from the match-fixing schemes was implicated. Ethan had spent years assembling this web, tracing every thread, verifying every transfer. Regulators couldn't ignore it. They launched sweeping investigations, issuing subpoenas, freezing accounts, and opening formal proceedings against dozens of entities. Ethan didn't need to say a word publicly. The evidence spoke for itself. The house of cards Victor Lang had built wasn't just collapsing. It was burning to ash. But Ethan wasn't done with Victor. A month before Victor's trial, Ethan secured a private meeting. It was held in a sterile conference room at the detention center. Victor was escorted in, hands cuffed, a shadow of his former self. His expensive tailored suits were gone, replaced by a plain jumpsuit. His face was pale, his eyes hollow with exhaustion. Victor's lips curled in a bitter sneer when he saw Ethan. "So, it was you," he said, voice low and hoarse. "All this time, Mercer, you really think you've won?" Ethan leaned forward, resting his hands lightly on the table. His voice was calm, measured. "I didn't come here for revenge, Victor. I came here to make sure you understood what you did. You didn't just rig matches. You destroyed lives. You made young players believe they were worthless, expendable. You built an empire on fear and lies, and then you left them to rot when things went bad." Victor scoffed, trying to mask his fear with bravado. "They'll rebuild. There's always someone else willing to take the risk." "Not this time," Ethan said, his tone turning cold. "I made sure the system's rigged against people like you now. Regulations are changing, audits are in place. Whistleblowers have a voice. You're not just losing your reputation, you're losing your future." For the first time, Victor's mask cracked. His eyes darted around the room, searching for a lifeline that wasn't there. His voice dropped to a whisper. "You ruined me." Ethan stood, his expression unreadable. "No, Victor. You ruined yourself. I just made sure everyone could see it." He left the room without another word. The day of Victor's trial arrived, streamed live to a hungry public. Ethan didn't attend, but he watched from a quiet hotel room, the curtains drawn. The prosecution laid out the evidence with surgical precision. Witnesses testified, including Connor and other players Victor had manipulated. The jury's verdict was swift, guilty on all counts. Victor Lang was sentenced to decades behind bars, his empire dismantled, his name synonymous with corruption and disgrace. Ethan turned off the screen, exhaling slowly. The weight he had carried for years, the anger, the betrayal, the need for justice, finally lifted. He didn't feel elation or triumph, just a quiet, steady sense of closure. In the weeks that followed, Ethan helped Connor and the other players he had guided find their footing. Some chose to leave esports altogether, unwilling to return to a world that had once betrayed them. Others decided to stay, determined to be part of a reformed scene that valued integrity over profit. Ethan provided quiet support, asking for no credit, no spotlight. Then, one day, he packed a single bag, left the hotel, and disappeared. His name, Alex Mercer, became a whispered legend in the gaming world. Some called him a hero, others a vigilante. The stories twisted, exaggerated, but one truth remained. He had taken down a monster, exposed the rot, and left the esports world forever changed. And somewhere, far from the arenas and bright lights, Ethan Cross sat at a quiet cafe by the ocean. The sun dipped low, casting a golden glow across the water. For the first time in years, he felt peace. He sipped his coffee, watching the waves roll in, knowing his story was finally over. The world could move on, and so could he.